Anine Bojo. I'm Sherry Lawson, host of Rogers TV Indigenous Voices. We're still here. Today, my special guest is Dan Shilling, who is a band member of Chippewas Rama First Nation and also a longtime employee of the community. Welcome, Dan.
Hello, Sherry. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad you're here. If you could please first introduce yourself for our viewers. Some of you won't know who you are, but that would be people who aren't getting out much, I would expect. Go ahead in whatever way you think.
Okay, Anine Bojo, Wasade Dishnakas, Ramadonjava. So my traditional name is Wasade, which means Northern Light. It was given to me by an elder in the early 90s, and the elder traveled to Rama many moons ago with her father and came to Rama to visit my great-great-grandfather. So it's funny how we would link up later in life. And anyway, I gave her tobacco, and she found a name for me a year after I gave her that tobacco. But in the daytime, my name is Daniel Shilling. I was born and raised here in Rama. I have been the head of the administration since March 13th, 1995, just before the casino opened. So I've seen lots of changes and lots of great opportunities that have come our way in regards to some of our economic success in this community.
Okay, thank you. Well, that is more than 25 years. If you had to kill somebody, you would have been paroled after 10, just in case you're wondering. Today, we're going to talk about some of the common myths that the public has about Indigenous people. And there's a lot of them. I started asking around, and everybody had a different one. But I'll be looking for your perspective on these. Let's start with the first one that everybody believes to be true. Indigenous people don't pay any taxes.
And we don't. If you work on reserve, your income is earned on the reserve. Hence, it is not taxable. If I worked in beautiful downtown Aurelia, I pay income tax.
And you also, to get that exemption in the community on the reserve, you have to have a status card.
Yes. So anybody born within our community has the benefit of not paying income tax. But we also employ many people who do pay income tax.
Mm-hmm. I can say for myself that for most of my life, I worked off reserve. So I paid big bucks in income tax over a 35-year period. So there's that myth gone. Second one, up this one from my grown son. I asked him this morning for one of the things that people believe about us. And he said, all Native people can get free gas on the reserve. Tell us about that one, Dan.
Free gas? Is that what you said? Free gas?
Yeah, that's what they're saying.
Free gas? No. We have to pay for our gas, but the only thing is that we do not pay any of the provincial or federal taxes on gasoline. So we get about 16 cents off a liter, but we do have to pay for gas. And the common thing in our community is, how come we have to pay more for our gas than they do at a no-name gas station on the other side of the bridge? But one of the things that we have chosen to do is we go with a brand name, and that's Shell, because many people will not put no-name gas in their vehicles. So a lot of our patrons may be driving nice vehicles, and they visit our gas station after they visit the casino, which made our gas station one of the most busiest gas stations in all of Simcoe County for the longest period of time. You know, with COVID right now, we're down about 50% in business.
Right. Okay. Well, there's another myth gone down the tubes. Another one that I hear all the time, and I speak to people all over the place. They say there are two main groups of Native people that they know about: Ojibwe or Chippewa, that's us, and there's a few Mohawks. And the latest thing I've heard is, there's also some Cree people up north. And after this week coming out of BC, when all the news media were talking about what little town, what First Nation that they were in, they said, hey, maybe there's Native people out there who are speaking another language. Mm-hmm. Tell us about that kind of thing.
Well, if you look at it, there's approximately 650 First Nations across the country. Ontario itself would have about 134 First Nations. There are probably 80 different native language linguists. And it's funny that people don't understand that many of our customs and many of our practices, although may be similar, but we're different. And we have our own way of doing things. The West, the East, depending on where you live, our customs all vary. There are similarities, but we all have our unique way of doing things.
Yeah, I know as well that just because you speak Ojibwe, that doesn't mean you can speak Cree. It's like speaking English and German. And when I try to explain it to people, they say, well, they all sound the same to us. And I said, think about people who speak English. If you're from Canada, if you're from Australia, if you're from England, you're all speaking English, but you don't sound the same. It's not the same with us. We have very distinct languages. Mm-hmm. Okay. Here's another one that all the history people have always asked me, and it still comes up. When the explorers arrived, Indigenous life was so primitive.
Which I think is wrong. We had ways of governance. We had ways of recognizing our territories. We had wampum belts that basically set out our relationship with our neighboring First Nations. We had several wampum belts with the Mohawks, and one of them is a yellowhead belt. The yellowhead belt was a gift from the Haudenosaunee that basically said that the Chippewa would stay on this side of Toronto, they would stay on the other side, and that wampum belt was marked by a whitefish over in Manitoulin, a beaver over in Penetang, the great white deer at the Narrows, the eagle at the Credit River. But we also had a ladle that said, as long as the food is plenty, and that there is peace between our communities, and that the food is plenty, the Haudenosaunee are allowed in our territory, but we must have peace, and they must be guests, and we must share. But the pact basically said that they would stay on the other side of Toronto, and then we would stay on this side. So we've had these belts, and they were belts of peace long before Confederation. So we had ways of governing ourselves.
All right. Well, thank you. That's saying as well that if the Mohawks come into our territory, they have to behave, right? Isn't that what it says, really? And if we go there, we have to be good too.
Yes.
I hear from many people that we had no written language, poor things, wandering around in the bush. We had no police or courts, nobody to keep control of things. We had no schools, we had no permanent buildings, and we had no important departments like Children's Aid. Can you talk about those things?
Well, I think we had families, we had family leaders, we had family, we had our dotems, and our dotems said, our family will be, the bear will be the police. The loon will be the chieftainship. There was other dotems were the harvesters. They were the gatherers. And we all had roles and we all had responsibilities. And each community governed themselves the same way. And like I said, we had many things that were the same as the Mohawk, as the Cree, as the Blackfoot and the people out west, but we all had a way of governing ourselves, and we all had a community that dictated how that would roll out, and for the interest of peace and governance within our communities.
Right. And we had community and cultural norms that told you how you were supposed to act, how you raise your children, how your extended family was very important in raising our children and grandchildren as well. So when those first explorers came over here, I won't add right now that some of them were hopelessly lost. They just looked around and thought, these poor people wandering through the bush. I remember I spoke to a grade 3 class. It's a number of years ago now. And at the end, I let the grade 3s ask me questions, which is also always dangerous. And the little girl asked me if I could talk to squirrels. And I said, well, I can talk to squirrels, so can you. I don't know if she got a log out there, but I never forgot that it's, it's the old Hollywood shows that are still being played on the Late Show that tell people these things are true. Now, here's a big one you and I hear every day. The people of Rama are rich because of Casino Rama.
Well, I think that's a myth, and it's like any business venture, you make arrangements. You make an arrangement that says what are the, as an example, when Casino Rama was an idea. It was an idea that the government of Ontario said, how can we create economic prosperity or generate some economic activity on First Nations? And one of the things that they did in the mid-90s, they said, okay, let's generate a casino. And the profits of that casino will be owned by the First Nations of Ontario. So the province engaged in an RFP process. And they asked every First Nation, put in a request for proposal and tell us how you are going to be successful. Can you generate loan to pay for part of this? Tell us how you're going to share the profits of your venture in your community. So in total, 24 First Nations applied, 12 were shortlisted. And then there was some financial requirements, which eliminated some, and it came down to about 7. But at the end of the day, we were chosen because of our close proximity to Greater Toronto, where the greater population of Ontario was. But we also had transportation. We had a good highway. We had a train that actually came from Union Station that came to the back of the casino. We had water and sewer. So that put us ahead of most and many other First Nations. But I think the thing that granted us the win was that we were able to secure $160,000 or $1 million loan, which at the time was one of the largest loans ever to a First Nation in this country. But the big thing that won it for us was our community said, we will keep 35% of the bottom and we will share 65% with the other First Nations. Some of the other First Nations in the final 3, their revenue shares were going to be 70 for them, 30 for others. The other person that finished third, theirs was 65 for them and 35 for the other First Nations. So we were sharing 65% of the bottom line with our brothers and sisters in the other communities. And unfortunately, when you throw money at First Nations, nobody wanted anything to do with it. But when Casino Rama became a huge success, it was greater than anything anybody ever thought. The original projections were probably maxed out at 200 million. Casino Rama peak year did about 620 million. So that generated a substantial amount of money. But what happened was First Nations couldn't agree on not factoring in what did Rama say they would do. We did everything we said we would do, but that wasn't good enough. Other First Nations said that's too much money for one First Nation. So what happened is we were granted money for the first 5 years. And understanding that we did not receive, even though we were the host, we did not receive any money until 5 years after the casino was open. But what was the major impact on our community? We had a credit facility that allowed us to put some things in place that needed to be happened. All of a sudden, we were having 10,000 people to our community. So what does that do to a community when there was no cash flow? But anyway, at the end of the day, we were paid out for the first 5 years. But after that, we went to court and we did not receive anything else other than the land lease that was negotiated And some of the things that we were successful in getting and negotiating up front that basically said that in the RFP, it said the successful proponent shall not be burdened with costs that are related to gaming. So we now were building a hotel. We needed a fire department. We had 10,000 people in our community. We now needed a police department. So we get approximately $5 million from the province of Ontario that goes to our emergency services. But our emergency services not only benefit the patrons of Casino Rama in our community, they benefit our neighbors. Our fire department has gone out and assisted Aurelia in many, many major fires. Our fire truck our ladder truck went to Huntsville, and the paper at the Huntsville, when we still had newspapers, said, Rama fire saves downtown Huntsville. The mayor sent us a letter saying, you saved our downtown, Rama. We are forever grateful for you. So we have now been able to assist our neighbors in mutual aid agreements, and we're actually treated like an equal player in the neighboring municipalities because we have generated an economic catalyst in the area. Our administration grew itself. We have a $60 million budget that contributes to the local economy, and that's not Casino Rama. That's the Chippewas of Rama. So we have benefited a lot of jobs, a lot of professional opportunities, a lot of jobs within the First Nation, schools, daycares, fire, police. We even have our own EMS which is funded by the Ministry of Health. But we have security officers. We have retail. Our gas station has expanded. Our marina opened in 1970. Our park opened in 1969. We've invested. We were partners in a joint venture at a casino in BC for 12 years. We've invested into bingo halls. We've bought Tim Hortons. We've bought shares of different companies. So we have benefited, and we've invested well for the benefit of our community.
Right. Thank you. Now, you mentioned that Rama had to go out and get a loan. Was it 126 million you had to borrow to get the casino going?
160 million.
160. So you must have called up the banks in town and said, hey, it's Danny out in Rama. Can you write us a check for 160 million? How did that whole thing go? I mean, how could they be sure we're going to get paid back? You would figure, though, all the banks would say, great idea, let's loan them the money.
Yeah, and I think it come back down to trust and relationships. So Scotiabank back in the 90s was not in the top three. I think there were 7 or 8. But Scotiabank funded our marina, funded our park, funded our industrial park, understood that our transfer payments and the recognition that our past leadership has brought us to in regards to being recognized as a well-managed First Nation. And this is prior to myself and others, but I think we've been blessed to have great leadership, and the administration itself grew as we grew. So I think we've been very fortunate to have that. And then we've also had many people come back home and brought those skills back home. But there was also opportunities to come back home. Back in the 60s and 70s, there was no opportunities here. Many people had to leave and go work somewhere else. But when we have economic opportunity in your own backyard, why not come home and benefit from it? So we have benefited from a lot of our own success.
Right. I would figure that loan that we got from Scotiabank, we must have paid it off pretty quickly, did we?
It was paid off in 2.5 years.
And that isn't what they expected. That wasn't the deal, was it?
No. And I think the big thing was that I think they projected it to be paid over 10 years. But then if it was paid off quicker, the interest payments were quicker, which created more profits at the bottom. And the big thing that people have to understand is that it was not a windfall to do whatever you want. You had to spend it on health, culture, education, economic development, community security. So there was, and that money had to be accounted for, and it also was based on last year's financial statement. So if you did not spend your money according to how it was supposed to be spent, the government had the right to withhold the money the following year. So it basically allowed for many First Nations to grow and to manage in a structured way, which was beneficial to all of the citizens. And it was not to be intended for per capita distribution.
Yes. Well, I think you've given us a really good view of the casino, and I know none of those things are deep, dark secrets, but people somehow think they are. Yes, there was good that went with it, but there is bad that has gone with it as well. Let's go back to our list of all the crazy things people believe about us. One that I get all the time is that Indigenous people get all free medical and dental.
False. As an example, as a First Nation person, I know that I had to pay for my son's braces. I have 3 boys, and 2 of them had braces, and Indian Affairs did not pay for that. I know that as a First Nation person, I'm entitled for certain medical, just as every citizen of Ontario is entitled to certain medical. But Indian Affairs, our medical services branch, and if you're working for an employer, they want the employer's benefits to be the first payer. So all of the people at Casino Rama, the benefits package that Casino Rama employees would have, the Chippewas of Rama has an outstanding benefits package. Those benefits have to be used first for any medical benefits to our families and our citizens. But right. Most people have to understand that we live in a country where public Medicare is important. So we have no more benefits than any other citizen of Canada or Ontario, for that matter.
Right. I know a few weeks ago, I had to go to the dentist, and the dentist said, Sherry, you need a crown. And I said, I know, right? Oh, but I digress. So it was going to be something like, it was a lot of drilling and they had to build this and that. It was going to be $2,300. Mm-hmm. So we sent the paperwork into Indian Affairs or Medical Services because I don't have a day job anymore. And they wrote back and said, can't you just pull the tooth? That was their answer for it. No, it's a front one. We're not going to pull it. So after some back and forth, they are going to pay for part of it, but I am personally paying for most of it. So that's another big myth that people believe we're just living the high life here with all our crowns. Now, one that has been in the news lately is that the only reason Rama is worried about what's going on at Chief Island is because it's a very high value as a piece of lakeshore. That's all we care about is how much money it's worth and what we could sell it for in today's market. What do you have to tell us about that, Dan?
Well, if you look at Chief Island has some very important historical significance for this community. It has a burial ground on it. Initially, some of that basically at one point in our history, it was the hub of the community. So we have a burial ground on there. Unfortunately, many people have been on that burial ground. Many people have stolen markers from that burial ground. We also there was markers for some of the teaching people that actually had their career there, and they were actually buried there. So there are non-native people who actually helped with our school on the island that are buried there, and and I think one of the stones from one of the families was actually stolen. So I think that's people have to understand that we've also had 2 referendums on developing it as for lease property, so that somebody could have leased it from us and generated revenue that could have been paid out to the members. But the community itself said, no, that is an untouched piece of property. We should leave it for the future generations. And I think that's where we're at there. The importance of protecting that community, and that we've put 3 cabins on there recently, wanting our community to enjoy the beauty and the fact that it is a jewel within our community. But one of the things that has happened there is that unfortunately there's historical partying and things that go on around the island. You look at you can go online and pull up Big Chief summer of 2019, and you think you were in a tropical island with the amount of boats, and there's a boat with a dance floor on it, and music's playing, and but unfortunately, it has become a haven for partying and unfortunately alcohol consumption, and it gets a little out of hand, and we've also had our fire services has responded to emergencies and fatalities, major injuries, back and neck injuries where people have been hit by a sea-doo. But I think the biggest thing is that we want it to be protected for the benefit and use of our community. And how is a beautiful lakefront any different than some of the municipalities who have built their own harbors? And you look at the city of Orillia, you look at the city of Barrie, and you look at no different than there is roped off swimming areas where you don't want any boats, you don't want any sea-doos, you do not want any motorcraft. That's all we're trying to do is protect what's our community is feeling it's theirs. And the council almost consulted with its people, and the people said, we want to exercise our rights to look after and control our own lands. We actually challenged the various federal ministries to say, have asked you to intervene, and you've continually have done nothing. So this council has decided that we are going to exercise what we feel is our right in our jurisdiction, and we put approximately 20 buoys across a certain portion of the one west bay of Chief Island.
People, I hear all the time from people, so often right to my face, that a lot of negative things have happened to Native people. The government did this, the residential schools did that, the 60 scoop caused more harm. That happened a long time ago. You people should just get over it. Mm-hmm. How many times have you heard that one, Dan?
I think we hear it all the time, and I think, but I think what people have to understand is that we are still, unfortunately, we may be economically successful, but we still have those cycles of social dependencies that have to be broken. We have cycles of we still have families who may or may not have not had a high school graduate. Mm-hmm. But we also have had many people that are now coming home with their doctorates, their degrees.
Right.
But unfortunately, we still have some cycles, and some of our community members that still are feeling the trauma and the effects of some of the atrocities that our people have lived through.
Yes, and that's a whole other show. Danny Shilling, I want to thank you for this time with us. I think we've taken some of those myths and turned them around, and I hope that our readers will have even more questions than they had answers a half an hour ago. Miigwech for joining us.
Miigwech, and I think it's important that it takes all of us to tell the story, because we've all lived it and we live it today, and we have to be protective of the next generations, and they also have to understand what happened, and they have to understand their history. So I say miigwech, and thank you for allowing me to be here today.
Miigwech.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
When you're online, Rogers TV on YouTube shares news and events from your community, like messages from local leaders, updates on the latest health news, local business presenting their new offerings, and how our local communities are working their way through these unprecedented times. Visit and subscribe to Rogers TV on YouTube for the latest local information.
After a night out with your friends, there's always options for getting home safely. You could call your BFF, your mom or dad, whoever you can count on for a safe ride home. You could call your favorite cab company or 1-888 taxi guy, or you could use the Arrival Live smartphone